Today, we're going to be diving into one of the most terrifying and well-documented UFO cases in history, the COLARES incident of 1977. Now, this isn't your typical lights in the sky UFO story. This is about hundreds of people in a Brazilian fishing village that got literally hunted down and attacked by mysterious beams of light that burnt their skin, causing mysterious puncture wounds and also allegedly draining blood from their very bodies. And another terrifying fact about this case as well is it is still going on today in other parts of the Amazon. Now let's explore the COLARES incident of 1977 and let's try and work out what the hell went on. Hello and welcome back, or welcome to my channel. If you don't know what's going on here, well, I'm certainly not going to tell you that shows such as Married at First Sight, Love Island, The Bachelor, etc., all those shows are done. They're done. No one wants to watch them anymore. They need to disappear. They're pathetic and only breeding OnlyFans creators. But I am a horror artist, and what I do is whatever is the topic in the videos, I will draw something inspired by that. You can support me. I have prints on Redbubble. I have an Etsy store. I make felt toy patterns and you can download and make one if you're creative. And I also have a munted AI coloring in book. All the links are down in the description below. Now this is going to be another long video. I've got a series of very long videos because I have a lot of things that I want to unpack with these cases that I'm doing, and I'm sort of trying a bit of a long form type video just to see how it goes and how much time it's going to take up, because I want to get more information on cases out there for everyone to, listen to, because there's no use in putting just a couple of, bits and pieces in when I want to do the whole story. But with that being said, let's finally get on with the video and let's get on with the drawing. Part 1. Welcome to COLARES, the calm before the storm. COLARES is a small fishing island located at the mouth of the Amazon River in Brazil's Pará state. In 1977, it was a quiet, peaceful community where everyone knew everyone. Life revolved around fishing, and the biggest concern was the weather affecting the catch. The island sits in the Amazon Delta region. Dense jungle, winding rivers, isolated communities connected by boat rather than roads. It's remote, it's humid, it's the kind of place where strange things could happen and the outside world would never know. But starting in August of 1977, something began visiting COLARES, and it wasn't friendly. Part 2. The attacks begin. It started gradually. In August of 1977, residents began reporting strange lights in the sky around 8 p.m. At first, people thought that they were seeing things, maybe unusual atmospheric phenomena, maybe reflections from boats or aircraft, but then the lights came closer. And then they started attacking. The wave of UFO activity followed a distinct pattern of escalation, reaching its peak in October and November of 1977. Initial reports began in August, describing strange lights in the sky that would approach houses at night. As incidents increased in frequency, witnesses began reporting more direct encounters with the phenomena. Here's how the attacks typically unfolded. Around 8 p.m, people would notice their ceiling or room being lit up with an intense orange light. But here's where it gets really weird. When it did happen, victims reported they could actually see through their ceiling. They could see the stars in the sky as if the ceiling had become transparent, but with a wavy, distorted quality, like looking through water or some sort of portal opening above them. Then the beam would touch them, and everything changed. Victims reported feeling paralyzed when caught in the light, experiencing sensations of heat, and often developing unusual marks on their skin. They couldn't scream. They were completely paralyzed, forced to endure whatever was happening to them while fully conscious and aware. Imagine being in your own home, watching your ceiling become transparent, seeing strange lights above you, and then being hit by a beam that freezes you in place while burning your skin. That is the nightmare that hundreds of COLARES residents experienced. Part 3. The injuries. Medical evidence. Now let's talk about the physical evidence, because that is what separates the COLARES incident from most UFO cases. There were real documented injuries that medical professionals couldn't explain. Everyone who was attacked had similar injuries. The beams left burn marks that felt like being burnt by a cigarette, but with characteristics that didn't match any known thermal burns. The burns appeared mainly on the face and chest, but here's what made them so unusual. The skin would peel immediately, not days later like normal burns. These weren't behaving like regular burn injuries. The most distinctive feature was triangular-shaped puncture marks on the skin. These weren't just superficial marks, they were actual punctures that penetrated the skin. The lesions looked like radiation injuries, began with intense reddening of the skin in the affected area, then later the hair would fall out and the skin would turn black. There was no pain, only a slight warmth. The victims were men and women of varying ages, without any pattern. Now here's where it gets truly disturbing. Victims consistently reported feeling their blood being drawn from their bodies. This is why locals name the phenomenon chupa-chupa, meaning sucker-sucker or bloodsucker in Portuguese. It wasn't just a cute name. People genuinely felt like something was sucking their blood through these beams of light. Some victims experienced symptoms that were beyond burns and puncture wounds. Neurological effects. Some victims developed a rigidity resembling rigor mortis while still alive, with their jaws locked, eyes fixed in place, and unable to speak. Complete paralysis, not just during the attack, but lasting effects afterwards, and severe weakness, consistent with significant blood loss. Part 4. Dr. Cavallo's documentation. Dr. Walid Seacom Cavallo was the town doctor who would become the primary medical documenter of the COLARES attacks. Dr. Cavallo was a rational medical professional, not prone to believing in UFOs or supernatural phenomena. When patients started coming to her with stories about lights attacking them and sucking their blood, she initially dismissed it as trauma-induced delusions. Then she saw the injuries, and she couldn't explain them. Dr. Cavallo documented over 40 cases with nearly identical injuries, similar burn patterns, identical triangular puncture marks, consistent symptoms across all patients, and no variation that would suggest different causes. When patients insisted their blood was being drawn out, Dr. Cavallo was skeptical, but she ran blood tests. And the results were shocking. All victims had abnormally low blood counts, but there was no evidence of bleeding. Think about that. These people had lost significant amounts of blood, but there were no wounds that could account for the blood loss. The only marks were these small triangular punctures that couldn't possibly drain that much blood through normal means. Dr. Cavallo was so baffled that she took some patients to other doctors for second opinions. These doctors were equally stumped. Nobody could explain the injuries using conventional medical knowledge. The pattern was too consistent to be mass hysteria. The physical evidence was too real to be psychosomatic. Something was genuinely happening to these people, and medicine had no explanation. According to ufologist Jacques Vallée, at least 2 deaths were directly attributed to these encounters. The most troubling case involved a woman who was rushed to hospital with severe burns to her chest. She died that same evening. But here's where it gets suspicious. Dr. Cavallo noted that the death certificate made no mention of the burns she had examined that morning, and no autopsy was performed. Why would burns not be mentioned on the death certificate? Why no autopsy when the cause of death was unclear? It smells like a cover-up. Part 5. The craft and the beings. So what exactly was attacking people? Let's look at the witness descriptions of the craft and entities. Multiple types of unidentified flying objects were documented over COLARES. Residents saw flying saucers, disc-shaped objects, and small glowing orbs. Some observers spoke of alien crafts shaped like cylinders and rectangular area objects, each casting intense bright light. The variety of craft types included your classic disc-shaped flying saucers, the glowing orbs, which was apparently the ones that would suck the blood out of people, cylindrical crafts, rectangular objects, and the most intriguing, which was the umbrella craft, which was a massive object sometimes described as stadium-sized, covered in lights and shaped like enormous umbrellas or cylinders. Witnesses claimed that these crafts would emerge from or enter the water, suggesting trans-medium capabilities. These weren't conventional aircraft. Witnesses consistently reported hovering at very low altitudes just above treetops, silent or near silent operation, instant acceleration from stationary positions, impossible maneuvers including right angle turns at high speed, ability to penetrate buildings with their light beams, and trans-medium capability entering and exiting water. Several witnesses claim to have seen beings piloting the crafts, describing them as no more than 3 to 4 feet tall. The descriptions match what we typically call the grey aliens. And if you are familiar with Alex Collier's research on different alien species and their behaviours, these small greys are exactly the type that supposedly engage in this kind of aggressive behaviour: abductions, medical experimentations, and causing chaos. Part 6. The community in panic. By October and November of 1977, the situation had reached crisis levels. The attacks were happening almost nightly, and the entire community was terrorized. The residents of COLARES tried everything to protect themselves, such as night vigils on the beaches. Groups would stay awake all night, watching the skies and trying to warn others when crafts approached. Lighting fires. Believing that it would keep the lights away, residents of COLARES lit fires and ignited fireworks. Shooting at the craft. Some people tried to fight back by firing guns at the UFOs. This didn't stop the attacks and may have even provoked retaliation. And makeshift shields. People created homemade protective devices, though their effectiveness is questionable. None of it worked. The beams would find people even if they tried to hide. What made this especially terrifying was that the witnesses reported beams of light hunting victims, seeking out anyone who attempted to hide. This wasn't random. The craft and their beams seemed to be actively searching for people, and if you ran into your house, the beam would penetrate the walls and ceilings to find you. If you hid under furniture, it would track you down. The lights were hunting people like predators hunting prey. People started leaving COLARES in droves. Families would pack whatever they could carry and flee to other towns and cities. Women and children were evacuated while men stayed behind to protect their homes and possessions. The community was disintegrating. People were too terrified to stay in their own homes after dark. Some refused to sleep at night, instead staying awake in groups for protection. By November, Mayor Jose Idoni Favasio requested help from the Air Force. The situation had completely overwhelmed local authorities. They needed military intervention, and they needed it fast. Part 7. Operation Saucer. The military investigation. In late 1977, the Brazilian Air Force responded by launching Operation Saucer. This would become the most comprehensive military investigation of UFO activity ever conducted while events were still actively occurring. The operation was commanded by Captain Hollander. Captain Hollander was a trained pilot with years of military experience. He approached the assignment as a skeptic, initially believing that he would find evidence of mass hysteria or misidentified natural phenomena. What he discovered would change his life forever. The Air Force investigators documented over 300 sightings and encounters. They took numerous photos and filmed strange lights in the sky. Some images showed disc-shaped objects with pulsating lights. This wasn't a cursory investigation. This was a systematic, professional military operation treating the phenomena as a genuine threat. Captain Hollander reported being personally affected by the phenomena. He described seeing UFOs up close and experiencing unexplained physical effects. In his later interviews, Hollander described witnessing multiple craft performing maneuvers impossible for conventional aircraft, the hunting behavior of light beams tracking people, people trying desperately to hide while lights pursued them, and direct encounters where craft hovered directly above his team. One night, a craft came over Hollander and his team while they were on the beach. Whatever it was real, and it was intelligently controlled, and it was interacting with humans in a disturbing way. Captain Hollander revealed in his final interview that the phenomena moved in a deliberate pattern, covering the Brazilian airspace and the Amazon region in strips. This wasn't random. The craft were conducting a systematic survey or operation. Whatever they were doing, it seemed organised and purposeful. After months of investigation, the Brazilian Air Force's official conclusion was inconclusive. They attributed the event to unusual atmospheric conditions or suggested mass hysteria. The files were classified, the team was reassigned, and the investigation was closed. For nearly 20 years, Operation Saucer remained buried in classified military archives, and Captain Hollander was forbidden for discussing what he had witnessed. Part 8. Captain Hollander's personal encounter. But Captain Hollander's involvement with the phenomena didn't end when Operation Saucer concluded. He had his own personal encounter that would haunt him for the rest of his life. After returning home from COLARES, Hollander experienced something extraordinary. One night, he heard a loud cracking noise. His bedroom lit up with an intense bright light, and then a being appeared. He described a personal encounter with a humanoid being approximately 1.5 meters tall, wearing a metallic spacesuit. Unlike the aggressive COLARES encounters, this being embraced him from behind and spoke in perfect Portuguese with a metallic voice saying, "Take it easy, we are not going to harm you." Think about that. A trained military officer, a skeptic who had approached Operation Saucer determined to find rational explanations, was now having a face-to-face encounter with a non-human intelligence in his own bedroom. Shortly after the encounter, Hollander noticed something strange. His forearm became itchy and red. When he examined it, he noticed that there was something under his skin, something that moved when he pushed on it. Hollander claimed to have received an implant in his arm that was visible but undetectable by X-ray. He could see the implant, he could feel it move under his skin, but medical imaging couldn't detect it. Whatever technology was used, it was beyond our current understanding. Part 9. Breaking the silence and the mysterious death. For 20 years, Captain Hollander kept silent about what he had really witnessed during Operation Saucer. He was bound by military secrecy, prohibited from discussing classified information. But in 1997, he decided to speak out. Hollander gave an extensive interview to Brazilian ufologist A.J. Gavard, editor of Revista UFO. In his interview, he revealed the truth about Operation Saucer. "The objects were real," Hollander stated assuredly. "We saw them, we photographed them, we filmed them. They were intelligently controlled, and they were interacting with the population in ways we could not understand," he added. Hollander was excited to finally tell his story. He was cooperating with researchers, providing details and helping to bring the truth to the public. And then, 3 months later, he was found dead. In October of 1997, roughly 3 months after his interview with Gavard, Captain Hollander was found hanging in his bathroom by his bathrobe belt. The official ruling was suicide. But there are major problems with this conclusion. Hollander was not suicidal, and he was excited about finally being able to tell his story. He had more information to share with researchers, he was in good spirits according to everyone who knew him, and the timing, just months after breaking his silence, is extremely suspicious. This reeks of silencing a whistleblower, someone who knew too much, who had evidence, who was telling the truth about what the government had covered up. Was Captain Hollander murdered to prevent further disclosure? We'll never know for certain, but the circumstances are deeply suspicious. Part 10. The psychological toll on investigators. Captain Hollander wasn't the only one affected by investigating the COLARES phenomenon. According to ufologist Daniel Rebiso-Geis in his book Extraterrestrial Vampires of the Amazon, several military personnel who participated in Operation Saucer suffered severe psychological consequences. Multiple staff members experienced nervous breakdowns, episodes of insanity, PTSD-like symptoms, and inability to process what they had witnessed. These were trained military personnel, not civilians prone to panic. Yet, witnessing the COLARES phenomenon had profound psychological effects that damaged some of them permanently. What did they see that was so disturbing? What evidence did they collect that was so shocking it broke their minds? The psychological toll suggests they witnessed something that fundamentally challenged their understanding of reality. Part 11. The declassified documents. In 2005, after persistent efforts by ufologists like A.J. Gavard, some Operation Saucer files were finally released to the public. These documents contain witness testimonies, photographs, and sketches that corroborated the accounts from COLARES residents. But here's the thing. Much of the material remains classified. The operation documented over 300 cases, with each witness assigned a coding number. If they released some documents, what are they still hiding? What evidence was too sensitive to release even decades later? This is one of the most thoroughly documented UFO cases in history, with more official evidence than almost any other incident worldwide. You can access these documents yourself with just a quick Google. Part 12. It's still happening. Now, you might think that what happened in COLARES in the 1970s stayed in the 1970s. It was a strange historical event that's over and done with. Well, you'd be wrong. Between 2013 and 2016, indigenous communities in the state of Acre reported encounters mirroring the COLARES incident with striking similarities. The same type of craft, harmful beams of light, and resulting terror. That's right. Almost 40 years later, the exact same phenomena started occurring in another part of the Brazilian Amazon. In one case, an indigenous resident fired a shotgun at a descending craft, resulting in immediate retaliation and hospitalization. Just like in COLARES, attempts to fight back resulted in more aggressive responses from the phenomenon. Whatever was attacking people in COLARES in 1977 appeared to still be active in the Amazon region. The phenomenon hasn't stopped. It just moved to a different location, targeting different communities. Why? What are they doing? Is it collecting biological samples? Conducting experiments? Feeding on human blood or energy? Mapping human populations? We don't have answers, but the fact is it's ongoing makes the COLARES incident even more significant. Part 13. Theories. What the hell was it? So what was happening in COLARES? Let's explore the theories from the rational to the terrifying. Theory 1. Extraterrestrial biological sampling. The most obvious theory is that these craft were piloted by extraterrestrial beings conducting biological research on humans. Are they studying humans and their reactions? But why so aggressive? Why not use stealth or anesthetics like in typical abduction reports? Why terrorize an entire community? Perhaps these particular entities don't care about our suffering. Perhaps they view humans the way we view laboratory animals, subjects for study, not beings worthy of ethical consideration. Theory 2. Energy harvesting. Some researchers propose these craft were collecting human bioelectric energy or life force, what some traditions call chi or prana. People were feeling weak, blood was drawn, and marks were found near the heart area. This theory suggests the craft was studying humans, but literally feeding on us, harvesting our energy for unknown purposes. Theory 3. Secret military operations. The skeptical theory is that this was a secret government program testing advanced directed energy weapons on remote populations because Brazil was under military dictatorship in 1977. Remote communities make ideal testing subjects. The government's reluctance to fully declassify files, the cover-up of the woman's death certificate, and Captain Helenda's suspicious death. But the problems with this theory is, why would they test on their own citizens so publicly? The craft technology seems beyond 1970s capabilities. Multiple witnesses saw non-human entities. The phenomenon has continued for decades, and similar events occur globally, not just in Brazil. Theory 4. Interdimensional entities. Some researchers propose these aren't extraterrestrials from distant planets, but interdimensional beings that can cross into our reality through electromagnetic portals because the home's walls and ceilings became transparent like a portal. Perhaps what locals called a portal were actually dimensional doorways, and these entities were crossing over to harvest something that they needed from our dimension. Theory 5. natural electromagnetic phenomena. The ultra-skeptical theory suggests ball lightning or other electromagnetic phenomena were misinterpreted as UFOs, with injuries caused by electrical discharges. But this theory completely fails because of intelligent movements, mass visual evidence from both civilian and reliable military officers, hunting behavior, and physical marks on people. In conclusion, the COLARES UFO incident of 1977 stands as one of the most significant cases in UFO history. Yet despite all this evidence, we still don't have a definitive answers about what was attacking people in COLARES. Were they aliens conducting cruel experiments, interdimensional vampires feeding on human energy, secret military weapons testing, or something else entirely beyond our current understanding? The people of COLARES lived through months of terror, hunted by lights in the sky that left them burned, punctured, and drained. Their suffering was real, their fear was justified, and somewhere in the classified files of the Brazilian Air Force, there may be evidence that could finally explain what happened. Evidence that could change our understanding of our place in the universe. So what do you think happened in COLARES? Let me know your theories down in the comment section below. Now, the image that I had in my head that was generated by this case that I drew was just of a woman being levitated into the sky. She's got all these things plugged into her because the UFO is draining her blood, it's draining her life force, and then there's these little aliens on the ground that are just making sure that everything's fine. There's also an alien on her left side, which is the right side, as you're looking at it, that is basically going, okay, I'm going to drain some shit for myself. She's paralyzed, she's in fear, she's just completely going, what the hell is happening to me? And I actually don't mind the face that I drew on this chick. Like, she's in complete horror. So the body is a bit out of proportion. I sort of realized that I'd done a few mistakes there, and I tried to pull her proportions back in, but I sort of failed there. It's alright, but I wanted to over exaggerate some of her features anyway, because I like to do that, like with really long arms and that, but it was just her from her torso to her crutch area was a little bit weird when I finally realized, so I ended up pulling some of that back down to sort of give her a bit more of a proportion, as I said before. But anyway, I am out of here. Now stay curious, stay skeptical, and if you are ever in the Amazon and you see strange lights in the sky, run, and don't stop running. Sometimes the scariest stories aren't fiction. They're documented history with hundreds of witnesses and military evidence. See you in the next one. Unless the Chupa Chupas get to me first. I probably shouldn't joke about that. Bye!